okay? Okay. So just a bit of background about myself. I started my career actually in the Israeli Navy. And while it might sound very sexy, the only time I was on a boat was actually just one time and was enough for me. So I was actually on the finance and IT. In the Israeli Navy in IT, I was responsible for implementing SAP in the Israeli Navy, and specifically material management, which is how I got acquainted with supply chain. And after leaving the Israeli Navy, I joined a company called M-Systems, an Israeli company that invented the USB drive. And SanDisk bought M-Systems back in 2006, and this is when I relocated early 2007 to the US and developed my career in SanDisk. So can you put up the presentation? So what I'm going to go through today, I'm going to give a quick overview on SanDisk and what we're doing, what we're selling, and go through the journey that we've been taking to improve our supply chain, optimize our supply chain, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions. So SanDisk are operating in 4 mega markets. We are known to most people on what we're doing on the consumer business. So I mentioned the USB drives. We've invented the memory cards that go into camera cards. We've invented the micro SD that goes into mobile phones where they have the micro SD slot. And that's a big part of our business. And then over the last few years, we've entered into more markets. You'll find our memory components in all of the leading manufacturers of mobile phones, tablets. You'll find our solid-state drives in all of the leading manufacturers of laptops. There's a transformation going on right now. I don't know if you're aware of that, but all of the computers up till 5 years ago were using hard disk drives. And we are in a transformation right now from hard disk drives to solid-state drive. Apple was the first one to declare, I think 2 years ago, that all of their computers will be only with solid-state drives. And now all the other manufacturers are following suit. And then the last portion, which is really going to be, we believe, a big engine growth for our company, is the data center. So you all hear about the cloud. The cloud requires a lot of storage. A lot of that storage today is, again, on hard drive, but there's a lot of appeal for companies to move to solid-state drives. We are in a trajectory where we keep reducing the cost for solid-state drives much faster than what hard drives could. And it's just a matter of time until a lot of that storage will be actually on solid-state drives. So some about our financials. We're a Fortune 500 company running about a run rate of $6 billion of revenue per year. 61% of our business is going to that commercial, those 3 mega markets on the left, and 39% to the retail, the consumer business. We have about $1.5 billion in net cash, and we are heavily invested in R&D. So a bit about how the supply chain in SanDisk works, which is a typical supply chain for a semiconductor company. So we have a fab that generates wafers, which are the memory components. That is a joint venture with Toshiba. That fab, which is located in Japan, between us and Toshiba together constitutes about a third of the supply of memory in the world that goes into all these markets that I mentioned. By the way, talking about robotics and so on, that fab is like the Disneyland for robots. So really amazing, hardly any people on the floor. Those wafers go into an assembly and test supply chain. We have some of our own captive assembly and test facilities, one in Shanghai, one in Malaysia. The one in Malaysia we just recently opened this year is going to be the first and only assembly and test factory that gets wafers into the line and has SSD drives coming out. And then in Shanghai, also, we're doing both assembly and test. And then we have also some contract manufacturers. Some are integrated across assembly and test. Some are doing just assembly, and some are doing just test. Then those products, those finished goods, are going to our fulfillment centers. If it's retail, the consumer, it goes into retail fulfillment centers. And if it's OEM, it might go into a hub. And I'll talk about how do we manage that. We're sold through more than 300,000 storefronts using distributors as well as system integrators, primarily on the enterprise space. So I'll talk about how we're doing planning, and maybe I should have mentioned my role is managing the supply chain planning for SanDisk, and we have a central operations organization that manages all the businesses from a supply chain perspective. So we have our S&OP process, and all of that process is integrated with systems, and we manage the advanced planning system. Initially was I2, today JDA, where we're managing all of our planning. Our planning engine runs every day, and it actually plans the factory every day. So every day we have a plan coming out, and we adjust shipments to different distribution centers, as well as what we're manufacturing on a regular basis. And then what we've also spent some time over the last couple of years investing in is creating an analytics center of excellence within my group that drives a lot of the improvements and optimization that we're doing in the supply chain. And I'll go through that in my presentation. So in our supply chain, what happens is as you go up the pipe, which is similar to many industries, we have an increased number of products and part numbers that start to be differentiated. As far as how many types of wafers are coming from the fab, there could be maybe only 20 or 30 at any given point. But as we go all the way to the SKU that we end up selling, at any given point, we'll probably sell more than 10,000 SKUs, or we'll have open order lines for different SKUs at any given point. So the key for us is, in order to optimize the way we manage our inventory, we want to make sure that we postpone the inventory down the supply chain as much as we can, even as a wafer level, at the very first part, as much as we can, while making sure that we're still meeting the service level that is required by our customers as far as lead time. And then what we also try to do is to make sure that we're delaying the part when we're doing the product differentiation. So we actually worked on how we manufacture and how we design our products such that the differentiation between different customers happens as much as we can at the end of the manufacturing process. So again, we avoid holding inventory that is segregated to different customers. In order to make this model successful, we are very much focused on reducing cycle time in our supply chain. And that's what we've been investing in, focusing across the entire operations organization. And that is a key to enable this type of supply chain. What we also make sure we do is we keep understanding and measuring the variability of both our demand and variability of the supply to make sure that we, one, take corrective actions to reduce it, and also make sure that we buffer for it so that it doesn't impact our service levels. So all of that basically is managed, all of this is managed via our planning system. And then the system recommends every day what to do. Then we have planners that review the outcome. They might do some adjustments. They enter it into the system. Then the system in the next run considers what they decided as that cannot be changed, and then plans yet again. And then on top of that, as I talked about the analytics group, we started focusing, after we cleaned up all of the first part, the first few parts, we started really putting a lot of effort and focus on how do we optimize and maximize what we call the dollars we get for every gigabyte of memory we bring out of the fab. And there's a lot of thought that we've put into, especially environments when we are in allocation, meaning that the supply does not meet all the demand. And in our industry, it's common to move between oversupply and over-demand scenarios because the fabs that we're investing in, when we decide to increase the capacity in the fab, it's a decision that we need to take 3 to 5 years before we actually seeing the fruits of that capacity increasing, which means that the bets that we're taking as a company in increasing capacity are pretty large. And obviously, it's very hard to time the market and whether the demand will actually be there or not. So that's why, and it's all of our competitors in the market are facing the same dilemma, which is why we're running between those cycles of oversupply and over-demand. And the way we manage our supply chain in each has to adjust. So one of the things when we were in allocation is to see how are we maximizing the dollars that we get out of the memory from the fab, and we change how we manage inventory in those periods. So I'm going to focus, with the time I have left, primarily on the upper part, which is our postponement inventory, and how did we go about it. So our journey started in 2009 in improving our supply chain. So before 2009, what we used to do is we had kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. We were building to forecast. Our major business was retail at the time. And it was all about maximizing the utilization of the factories. We're very rigid. We had a production plan frozen for 6 to 8 weeks based on the forecast. And we built and just stuffed our retail fulfillment centers in 4 regions with product based on the forecast. And basically, the way we managed the supply chain, where we had weekly meetings with all the business units. Operations were shouting on business units why their forecast is so bad. And now we have all this inventory, and go sell it. And the business units will, well, I have all this demand. Why don't you have inventory for me? And that's been going on for quite a while. Our on-time delivery for the retail customers at the time was, it was not uncommon for it to be for great periods of time, less than 50% on-time delivery, which is obviously horrific. So we understood we have to change. And also, inventory, by the way, was very high relative to the revenue that we generated because, again, we built all that stuff that we didn't need. So the key leading factor in how we changed and transformed, and I don't know if Laura will like my comment, but we don't care about forecast. We don't care about demand sensing. We just say, forecast will be bad, deal with it. And my boss, who manages all the operations and reports to the CEO, that's definitely his mantra to all of us, is forecast will always be wrong. And what we need to focus on is how do we react to what we call real demand, the real orders, the real commitments from the customers, and how do we make sure that we're ready with the supply for them, but while still managing our supply chain lean. And that's where that focus on cycle time came about. And really, the key was for us to shorten the lead times within our supply chains. So we moved from build to forecast to postponement model, where we build to targets, inventory targets at 2 levels. One level we were holding at our factories. At the time, it was mostly contract manufacturers, and we just started ramping our factory in Shanghai. And so that was one level, and it was a generic form of our finished goods, so it could go to many different channels. And then another level, which was in the retail fulfillment, because our customers needed 3 to 5 days of order to ship type of service. And then all of that was modeled in this I2 tool or JDA tool. And the key was, I talked about cycle time. If you are freezing your build plan for 6 to 8 weeks, even if the time it actually takes you to build a product is 2 weeks, let's say, your lead time is actually it's like you're saying you're 10 weeks. You gotta count planning cycle time into your overall cycle time. It's just part of your cycle time because you're late reacting to your real demand. I'm sure you'll show that in the game. So we understood we got to shorten our planning cycle time, and that includes the factory. So a lot of convincing with the factory to shorten their frozen window. When we started with this, we took it down to 2 weeks. Today, we're planning the factory every 3 days, the whole manufacturing floor. And anyone that comes from the semiconductor industry and assembly and test knows that's a big thing to do, assembly and test in semiconductor, replanning the whole floor every 3 days. And that's what we're doing today, and we see huge benefit for that as far as both meeting on-time delivery as well as shortening our cycle time, which means reducing our inventory. So the system automatically, you can see with the green, yellow, and red there, identify the work orders that are urgent, where we're missing customer request date versus those that we're building to target, so they're less urgent. And it helped also automatically tell the factories which work orders they need to prioritize and bring out faster. So still kind of a one-size-fits-all. We had this postponement inventory. Then what happened, we started identifying within retail, we have now these different channels that have different requirements that needs to be met, and that one-size-fits-all will not work. So that's where we started our journey in supply chain segmentation. So we had 4 segments of business that we identified. There was the build to target, which I presented earlier, which was still sufficient and good for those businesses. Then we had what we call the CPFR customers. These are the primarily North America big retailers like Walmart, Best Buy, and so on, that they require what is called a CPFR process, where they give us a 13-week rolling sell-through forecast. We collaborate together with them how much channel inventory they need to hold, and we are responsible to make sure we have replenishment going in, and we give them commits as far as what we're going to ship. We had a lot of problems with meeting our commits, and so we had to create a different process in the system to generate those commits and make sure that once we created those commits, they are high priority and they are being met. So that was one part segmented. Then, we said, okay, we have these emerging markets developing. That was back in 2010, 2011. We really wanted to grow our business in what was then the famous BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And in those markets, in order to succeed, the retail business unit realized they need a completely different business model where from supply chain perspective, it means we need to be able to deliver within 1 day, and we need to be closer to the customer. So we had to adjust supply chain for that as well. So as I said, we did the CPFR commits, we did the business for the emerging markets, and then e-tail started popping, and really this omni-channel challenge is very, very interesting. If I look back to 2010, 2011, our biggest customers in retail were like Walmart, Best Buy. We had Circuit City, Radio Shack. Some of these names are gone by now. And today, our biggest customers in retail is Amazon. And very, very different needs. Lead time requirements that they have are different, and we need to react to the forecast could change quite a lot, and they are expecting us to react within the same week for whatever they do. So we needed to create a unique supply chain or designing the system for them such that we respect their priority. So that's how we segmented retail. But then, as I mentioned, we started growing into different markets. The OEM market, very different market than retail. And then the challenge is, okay, how do we keep maintaining this retail business and then also operate very aggressively in the OEM market that has very different requirements from a supply chain perspective? So again, in the system, we started developing more supply chain strategies that would fit more of the OEM market. So for example, with some of the customers where they have very customized products, we agreed together with them, we don't want to build inventory that would just sit there that is purely customized for them. So for those customized customers, we agreed on longer lead time. So we said we're going to build to order. So we have that die bank where the wafers are sitting. And it's a very generic type of inventory. No risk in holding that. And as we get the order, we promised, hey, our supply chain is very quick, very flexible. We can get you product, depending on what product they build, but could be 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And then we had some customers that were willing to pay more for having fast service level. And they wanted, they have their factories, they have their own contract manufacturers, their production changes all the time. They want inventory available. And that's when some of them, we actually, the virtual hub term is a term I copied from Intel. Where is he? He's not here. So I went to a presentation by Intel maybe 4 years ago, and they talked about this virtual hub concept, which we really liked, and we implemented as well. Where everybody are manufacturing today, at least in our industry, and a lot of our customers in China or Southeast Asia, and they don't really. It's just a waste, spreading the inventory all over the place in different hubs in different locations. Where honestly today, to each of those locations, you could get within 1 day. So a lot of our customers, we convinced rather than to spread the inventory across many hubs. Next to their ODMs or CMs, contract manufacturers, let's keep it in our factory, and then you, the customer, get the advantage of having one consolidated inventory, and the chances of us really having the inventory going to the right place is much higher. You don't need to worry about having the inventory in the right place, and we guarantee within 1 day we'll ship it to you. So that helps us a lot to reduce inventory. However, we do have some customers that we still do the VMI model. It's especially applicable for those customers that have manufacturing network that spans globally, and we cannot have that 1 day type of logistics. So again, all of that we've modeled in the system. So now think about how many different supply chains we have modeled in the system. Now the great thing is all of this is not visible at all to the factories. All they get every day is just a list of work orders they need to open. And the system already does all of that in the background and generates really what we need to manufacture. And they don't care in the factory if it goes to build to order or virtual hub or VMI. They don't care. They just get one plan with the priorities that they need to build. So what are the kind of the next steps that we've been doing in our supply chain after we took this journey of the supply chain segmentation? So talked about delay product differentiation. So with the help of my manager that really helped to install within all of his staff, and he owns product management, portfolio management, and quality and procurement, and sales operations and test engineering, so and packaging engineering. So as he installed that importance of cycle time, we were able to work together to make sure that as we design our product, we are what we call design for supply chain. So such that it enables us to have products that are being designed in such a way that we can hold inventory in a very generic form, where the risk of us creating excess inventory is very low, and then have manufacturing capability to turn very fast that inventory into finished good and shipping to a customer. And that's what we call delayed product differentiation, where we do the differentiation of the product between different customers and different markets at the very last stage of manufacturing. And then we started also investing time, especially this analytics center of excellence, work together with finance and the business units to create these models of cost to serve. And now we're actually having discussions, and the business knows, in the past when business was doing pricing, all they looked at is the cost of the product. They did not consider the cost of the supply chain. Inventory has a huge impact on our financials. 80% of the cost of our product is the memory, and if we take this precious memory and we just distribute it around in different places and build inventory, that's very impactful for us. And to give you a sense, like year to date in our market, prices in the market has dropped almost 50%. That means 1%, every week of inventory, we lose 1% of the value of our product. So that's why inventory is so important for us. So we started building cost to serve models with our sales and business, and they actually talk with customers about premium relative to what service level they want. And when they price products within the business unit, they take into account the cost of the supply chain. And that's where, as I said, the value-added services are coming, where we go to customers and we talk about this triangle where we can optimize cost, we can optimize lead time, or we can optimize predictability of the supply. You tell us where you want to be on that triangle, what is more important for you, and then we'll put you in the right place as far as supply chain strategy and pricing. For example, if what's most important for you is cost, and you don't care so much about lead time or about predictability, then we'll do build to order for you. If you care about lead time, not so much about cost, then we'll do maybe virtual hub or hub. So these are the type of discussions we're starting to have with our customers. So what are the key lessons? And this is my last slide as we were going through this journey. So, and by the way, I mentioned on-time delivery at the beginning of my presentation and how horrible it is. Today, our on-time delivery, we're definitely considered one of the best in class. We get, as we work in the OEM business, we get scorecards for many of our leading customers, as well as on the retail environment. We've won several awards on the retail side with Walmart, Staples, and others about being best supplier. Also on the OEM front, we're usually considered the #1 supplier from an operations and execution perspective among our peers. And from an inventory perspective, at a certain point we saw, and you saw actually that slide, it shows it from Laura, that we were able to manage double the business in retail with half the inventory after we did this transformation with much better on-time delivery. So key lessons from going through this, as my time is running up. We had a think tank team that we've created for different functional leads that were helping to architect the solution, and then they were helping us also to manage the change. We've learned that talking directly to customers or to our salespeople about what we need to improve on and what are the customers really expecting from us as a supplier was instrumental for us to get better. Having an advanced planning system and implementing it in a scalable system we feel is key to really implement successfully supply chain segmentation. We definitely would recommend, this was a journey. We started in 2009, and like every year we added more functionalities. We really recommend not doing a big bang type of implementation here, but take it in incremental. Do take the time to make sure that you design your products for supply chain. Trying to change it later is very, very difficult. And getting the buy-in for cost to serve was easy. The implementation was definitely harder. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So why did I ask him to come? You know, I'm known as kind of the demand gal. Well, I see a lot of people talking about customer segmentation, but I'm like, how do you really translate it to the rhythms and cycles of the supply chain? And what's form and function of inventory mean to you, and what do buffers mean? And I think this is a great case study of form and function and buffers. And your planners really plan. Now, how many planners do you have?
So we have 2 planning groups. We have one group that has about 10 to 15 people that does the longer term planning, meaning generating a 13-week forecast. And about the same size of a planning group that sits in close to our manufacturing facilities that plans the bill plan twice a week.
And what are your insights about building a planning organization?
So I think there's a lot of value. I know a lot of companies are debating where the demand planning function is, whether it's in the business or sales or operations or finance. We have the demand planning function in my group. I think that helps a lot. And then the fact that I've dedicated resources to drive excellence in the supply chain, so that group of analytics that I mentioned, we have about 5 people there that all they are focused on is just optimizing our supply chain, improving our supply chain, driving all the projects together with IT, and they keep being challenged on what we can do next. And having them dedicated as a resource to do that, rather than, I know some others might take people from the functions and try to give them a project. I just don't believe that works.
Yeah, I don't either. And you know, we talk about network design, and many people see that as like, where are the bricks, right? But this is, to me, network flows and rhythms and cycles, and it's the design of that supply chain at the gut level. How long did it take you to adapt to that kind of thinking, if you think about your journey?
So it took a lot of time until we realized that we need to change. We've been doing build to forecast for a very long time, and we were under the impression like that's the only way to operate and there's no other way. And what really made us change is just customers telling us, hey, we actually lost customers. And some of those customers are really vindictive. Once you're kicked out because of supply chain performance, very, very hard to get back in.
Yeah, they're not very forgiving.
So we realized we have to change it. It came all the way from the CEO. And a few of us talked to the CEO and the COO about what we think we can do to make it much better. And we got the funding, we got the support, and that's how we did it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Let's give him a hand. Thank you.